Hi kids! Today in Bible videos, we're gonna learn about the story of how Deborah and Barak went into war. Are you ready to learn more about them? Let's get started. During the time of Joshua, the Israelites conquered much of the land that God had promised to them, but there were still areas controlled by the Canaanites. God raised up judges to lead his people and help them live by his laws. When the Lord raised up a judge and people obeyed God, they lived in peace, and if they went into battle, they were victorious. But when the judge died, the people abandoned God and started worshipping other gods. When they started to do such horrible things, the enemies defeated them very easily and they lived in great distress. And after the death of a judge called Ehud, God's people turned to worshipping false gods again. And as a result, God led the people of Israel to be conquered by King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. The commander of King Jabin's army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Sisera had 900 iron chariots, and he ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Then they cried out to God for help. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophetess who was judging Israel at that time. She would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel, and the Israelites would go to her for advice and to settle their disputes by God's laws. And one day, Deborah sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, who lived in Kadesh in the region of Naphtali. Barak traveled south to meet her. When Deborah saw Barak, she said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you to do. Gather 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor. I will call out Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, to the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." And Barak replied, saying, "I will go, but only if you go with me." And Deborah replied, saying, "Very well, I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with him. Barak called together the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, who lived east of Lake Galilee, and 10,000 warriors went with him and Deborah to Mount Tabor. When Sisera heard Barak had gone up to Mount Tabor, he called for all 900 of his iron chariots and all his warriors, and they marched from Harosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River. Deborah said to Barak, "Get ready! This is the day the Lord will give you victory over Sisera. The Lord is marching ahead of you." It had rained and the Kishon River was in flood. Barak led his 10,000 warriors down the slopes of Mount Tabor into battle. Sisera's chariots got bogged down in the wet clay, and his warriors abandoned them to flee on foot. And Barak chased them all the way to Harosheth Hagoyim, killing all of Sisera's warriors. However, Sisera fled towards Zanim, where Heber the Kenite had pitched his tent. He was on friendly terms with King Jabin of Hazor, and Heber's wife was called Jael. Now Jael went out to meet Sisera and said, "Hide in my tent, sir. Don't be afraid." So he went into her tent. She gave him milk to quench his thirst, and then hid him under a blanket. And Sisera called Jael and said, "Stand at the door of the tent. If anybody comes, say there is no one here." But when Sisera fell asleep from exhaustion, Jael quietly crept up to him with a hammer and the tent peg in her hand. She drove the tent peg through the side of his head and killed him. When Barak came looking for Sisera, Jael went out to meet him, and she said, "Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for." And Barak followed her into the tent and found Sisera lying there dead. And from that time on, Israel became stronger and stronger until they finally destroyed King Jabin and lived in freedom. Deborah wrote a victory song which they sang in celebration. There was peace in the land for the next 40 years. The end. And I hope you had fun learning the story of how Deborah and Barak went into war. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more Bible videos. Bye.